Hi everybody, welcome to this Empowering Cloud briefing. This time we are talking about Microsoft Teams and BYOD. It's a super interesting space. We've just been prepping for this recording and talking about how it intertwines with places and room bookings and is it, does this feature work or does that feature work? So we're going to talk through what it is, some of the features that are available, some of the things on the roadmap, and more importantly, get a perspective from Randy and Chris, who are both in the field having these conversations with customers. So maybe I can start off with intros. Randy, do you want to do an intro?
Yeah, so Randy, I'm gonna Google me, and you'll find me under my UC Status brand. I also happen to work for Logitech as a solutions engineer. Hi, great to be here.
Awesome. And Chris?
Yeah, hi, Chris Fitzsimmons. I'm a senior solutions architect at AVI-SPL. I work in our unified communications team internationally.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, so some really great perspective here. And I think we should start off with kind of definitions. So we talk a lot on Empowering Cloud about Microsoft Teams rooms and MTR on Windows and MTR on Android. And obviously that's been Microsoft's push for a number of years now, well over 1 million units in customers, that number continuing to rise. And that's Microsoft's like first and best meeting experience. Like you've got the meeting room running, you're good to go, you've got all the AI technology in there. But in the last sort of maybe 18 months, maybe a little bit longer, BYOD has come on the scene from Microsoft as kind of acknowledged as a reality of some customers. And even customers, a customer I talked to with over 1,000 MTRs still has an estate where they're like, actually those huddle spaces, BYOD is what we're going to do. And it feels like Microsoft have recognised that and said, well, if customers are going to have some BYOD, let's try and make Teams as good as it can be in that scenario. Randy, would you say that's kind of a fair summary of where we're at? What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I would start slightly before that. So BYOD, a webcam and a puck or some sort of video and audio and a screen in a room is nothing new. It was around well before even codecs and modems and all that kind of stuff. So, link room system was the first kind of, let's make it simple and you don't need a big forklift and a truckload of money to throw at it to simplify joining, a Microsoft meeting. And then Skype room system continued that, Teams room system continued that, and as you said, well over 1 million rooms in situ. The issue with Teams rooms is not every meeting is a Teams meeting, despite all of our best efforts and concerted best efforts. Not every meeting is a Teams meeting, so sometimes you have to join something else.
Yeah,
and and there are ways to do that, but
and that's a good point actually. When we talk about BYOD, and everybody listening to this probably already understands this, but this is bring your own laptop or bring your own compute and run the meeting off that.
Yeah.
We do have scenarios with MTRs where customers want to plug in and do essentially audio video peripheral pass through because they're joining an obscure platform. They can't do direct guest join, they don't have CVI, and they want to join. So when we talk about BYOD, we're mostly, I think, talking about there isn't an MTR in play, but there is a scenario where you do BYOD pass through with an MTR in play as well.
Yeah. So what we're talking about is BYOD specifically for Teams meetings, right? Yeah. BYOD for everything else, yeah, that's been around for forever and a day.
Yeah.
The BYOD for Teams meetings, I think, is, as you said, has been now recognized by Microsoft as an alternative to Teams meetings, to Teams rooms. We'll call it that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Chris, you spend a lot of time talking to customers all over the world. How has the kind of improvements in BYOD on Teams been received?
I think it's been really interesting because, as Randy just said, room systems, Teams room systems have had to supplant BYOD. That's essentially what they competed with in the first place, right? And we were doing BYOD. We weren't calling it BYOD, but it was BYOD for 15 years, right? And then now we have room systems, but we still have to acknowledge BYOD because, frankly, I still have customers whose almost entire estate is BYOD and they're not interested in moving anytime soon. Their response of those customers to the improved experience has been, I'll say, a little bit and it's sort of like, oh, big whoop kind of way. We're already
and maybe
doing
actually,
this.
maybe we should talk about what the improvements are for context.
Yeah,
So
I think
that might be helpful if you want to take us through, Chris. Kind of what
I think the Teams
added.
desktop client paying attention to the fact that it's connected to a BYOD peripheral set is a massive improvement. And
Yeah,
I think
so that's
for customers
that's also switching. So you plug it in, it realizes I should use the room video and the room audio.
Yep, and the improved display setup where the front of room display gives you the PowerPoint live gallery.
The actual team stage. It doesn't
instead of like that. I just see my
screen.
desktop on the screen thing, right? All the privacy
shared
enhancements.
Display mode, putting the thing on the front of room display. Yeah.
Those are all really, really good. I think everybody likes that. But there's still this category of people that are just used to plugging in a plug and making their laptop screen appear on the TV at the front of the room. And for those people, it's sort of like, well, but there's always those people who are just resistant and are happy with what they're doing. So it's a little bit tough. I think the other reaction has been, and this is getting a lot better, and we'll talk about this in a minute, the amount of work that has been required to get to that improved state in administration and in configuration and in setup so far has, I think, felt a little bit tough. And we'll talk about this. It's actually gotten an awful lot better since it was first announced, but like I think a few people's first experience of it was, I have to do what now? And then no, we'll just get on with what we're doing. And I think it's worth everyone having another look at this and going, all right, Microsoft heard the feedback, they've made improvements, it's got a bit more streamlined, and there's a clear user experience benefit to doing it this way because of the display and the things like intelligent recap and all that extra good stuff that we're now getting through BYOD. So I think initial response was cautious / apathetic / and now I think it's worth a revisit sort of 6 to 12 months after the first feature swing.
You touched on two areas there. So one is the user experience improvements. So the stage automatically going onto the big screen, the auto selective devices, and Microsoft are pumping a lot of features like speaker recognition and roster recognition into the BYOD scenarios, provided you've licensed up, which I think is combinations of premium, Copilot for some of the recognition, and the shared device license. And I wouldn't say hand on heart I can tell you which combinations of features align to which device licenses yet, because that sort of seems a bit transient. And then you've got the admin side of it, where Microsoft are using the Teams client to auto detect that this appears to be a multi-user device, a BYOD scenario, and starting to pull analytics into the Pro portal so you can start to understand your estate. And that was a big part of the pitch. Is BYOD is out there, but most organizations don't really have a strong handle on what devices are where, how much are they being used.
Yeah, I think we should do a quick what's what, right? So here's the scenario. If your Teams client determines that you are connected to a BYOD device, it will give you a optional, different, improved user experience and some enhanced features. How does that happen? Your BYOD device in your room needs to be associated to a resource account, and then inside the Pro portal, it needs to be told this is a BYOD room, and a license needs to be applied to that resource account. Ideally, that gives you some extra analytics and so forth. But if you don't map the device to an account and say this is a BYOD account, you will not be offered that improved user experience.
Yeah, so it relies on having that resource account.
So there's that homework that has to be done. Given all of that, then you get this enhanced BYOD experience for Teams meetings. And so that's really important that people, this isn't like just walk in and plug in. There has to be work done in the background, and other things need to happen. Like you need to book the room. You need to, in the same way that you would invite a Teams room to the meeting, you need to invite the BYOD shared device room to the meeting.
Yeah, you're effectively booking the room. Like if you've got Outlook set up the way that Microsoft intend, you have a resource account for every room because that's how you book the room. So just like we use a single resource account for an MTR in a room, it's a single resource account for the BYOD. It's technically a kind of association, but it's like the same device is the shared device. And Randy, maybe you can help us with the panels. That's where the panel conversation potentially comes in as well, isn't it? Yeah. You could have that room have a panel on that same resource account.
Yeah, so, from a user experience, as you said, go to Outlook, book your meeting, invite whoever you're going to invite. If you need a room and more chairs or whatever, or you want to talk with better equipment, then you want to book a room. And one version is, a Microsoft Teams room with dual displays and a bunch of other really fancy stuff. or the BYOD space. But at the end of the day, you're just booking a meeting that's, from the Room Finder or in the future Places Finder, or actually even having things like, it will automatically suggest a room based on, meeting and proximity to other users and stuff. Again, we're teasing with features that are coming to the whole meeting and workspace experience. To be clear on the licensing requirements, Microsoft Teams rooms, it's the Pro license. Don't buy Basic. Don't let friends buy Basic. Buy Pro. It has all the features. It has all the admin. For the other side, it's the shared device license, which was originally the common area phone license, and it's kind of morphed into this new thing. One of the really cool things that it gives you, apart from the Teams side, the Exchange side, is the ability to use a scheduling panel, or what Microsoft called Teams panel. So lots of OEMs out there that have these, panels that run the Teams interface. You could have a BYOD room where a user just sees a single cable or has a dongle to kind of connect to the whole room experience, but they can also walk up to that room and see the scheduling panel outside, or sometimes actually inside on the front of room display, or both, to give them that kind of confidence that yes, that room that I've booked, it was called this one is called this. I can see that's my meeting, it's my subject, my name.
Yeah.
So it reinforces that whole thing. So, from the user perspective, it already improves the whole experience.
Yeah, it's starting to get to be a much more polished
something they've already
experience,
used for 20 years. Yeah.
Like I'm in the right place. I know where I am. The meeting's booked. I can see typically on the outside, like that's my session.
But also things like, what if I just want to walk around or roam the hallways to try and find a room because I need a quiet space because the sales floor is too noisy or whatever. I found a room that happens to be free, and I can either just press reserve and it reserves it and puts it in there, or I could use the QR code. Again, another great feature that Microsoft have added and works on the shared device license. Use the QR code to add that room to a meeting I've already got scheduled. I actually did this yesterday at a partner site where they had a room, and I just used the QR code and managed to have it scheduled for a meeting I already had in the diary. It worked great.
Nice. And that association, Chris, you talked about, was one of the kind of initial challenges. Is some of the customers we all talk to literally have thousands and thousands of BYOD.
Yeah, we should talk about
devices.
how that list arose, right? So the original methodology that Microsoft had was to recommend to you things that might be considered BYOD devices, right? And the way they did that was look at graph and go, this I don't know, HDMI device identity has been plugged into by lots of different people, so it's probably a shared device. So they set a bar and said, all right, if it's been plugged into 5 times by different people in the tenant, we will assume it's potentially a BYOD or shared device. And so they tossed all of those devices into a list in the Pro Management Portal in the Inventory tab under Devices and said, this is your pool of things. Now that sounds excellent until you realize what happens when you have an organization with 4,500 employees like AVI-SPL. Your list of potentials gets a bit
with
big.
No other metadata. It was just like, here's a bunch of device IDs. You go and work out where these device IDs are, essentially.
So the improvement has been to offer different, more, let's say, curated methods of building that list and managing that list. Because you can actually delete that list, right? So that's probably step one. Then you can do a number of different things. You can manually upload a list of known devices mapped to the resource accounts you want to map them to. So you can make a CSV, populate it with your known stuff and throw that into the Pro Portal, and then that becomes your list. The other thing you can do is move around your building and plug into stuff and run a PowerShell script, and that will like grab the device IDs if you don't already have them and help you populate that spreadsheet, which again, you call CSV, which you can then throw back in. So the methodology has got better. I mean, the ideal state is you go to your AV partner and you're buying some BYOD solution and you get from them the serial numbers or you get from them the device identifiers, and then you in advance before they're even out of the box, and then you are ready to receive them. That's fine for a new build or greenfield. It's obviously not going to work post fact, and that's when using the script or building your own CSV is a better solution than trying to scroll through a bazillion Dell 24PH monitors.
Yeah, that's the classic case, isn't it? You've got these offices certainly in major cities where it's like there's banks and banks of those Dell USB-C monitors, and it's like, oh, they're all BYOD devices now.
And the last enhancement is
auto association.
is this auto association, right? Which is like making best guess effort at this device is mapped to this resource account.
Because we know the user that used the device. We know what was in their calendar at the time they did it. If all 5 people had the same, or whatever the variables are, the same in the calendar, and that's really, I think, going to help. That's not rolled out yet. That's currently scheduled for June, I believe. It's MC 105 9673, and it's that's going to be really interesting because in theory, the algorithm should do quite a good job of that if your rooms are booked consistently and they have a consistent name.
That's a slightly different feature. The auto association is actually January. That's already happened. The auto detection. So one of the other steps is when you want to do this is you have to use in-room audio when you plug in and join the meeting.
Yeah,
pre-join
sorry,
dialogue.
You're talking about the user experience. I'm talking about the associating between the room and the device.
Yeah. So auto detect is when you plug it in, it's detecting because you've booked that resource account and whatever else. It will set the audio and video as as that in the actually ignore your default Windows settings. That is a great feature. And the shared display mode is a kind of an extension of that as well. Obviously, if you've got the display as part of your BYOD experience, then obviously your Teams meeting stage will move up to the front of room display, which is such a super cool thing.
I think we're both right, Tom.
Yeah.
They auto associated some devices in January, and in June they're going to associate even more other devices.
You're right.
Is what's going on.
And just looking at the list here as well, the other things to add to Randy's list there is it'll auto disable voice isolation, because it knows you're in a scenario where you might have multiple people, and it will do the kind of room node in the roster where it will do, this is the room and these are people in the room, which obviously all ties into the speaker recognition attribution as well.
And that's probably where we should go next, right? One of the interesting things about BYOD is the addition of room system exclusive features to the BYOD user experience, right? So things like intelligent recap, speaker attribution are available already in BYOD rooms. And the reason for that is that Microsoft wants people to get as much as possible out of Copilot. And if Copilot only works in room scenarios where you've got a Teams room system,
you're missing a lot of data, right?
That means you're missing a lot of data and you're missing a lot of value from your Copilot license. So enhancing the BYOD room ability to feed Copilot information and take advantage of not agents, all the other sort of meeting assistant stuff you can get, that is really, really important, which is why they've added speaker recognition, why they've added attribution, so that the recaps generated in BYOD rooms are, I'm going to make a word up here, co-pilotable.
Well, even things like Cloud and Teleframe are coming, those kind of things. People recognize, people naming on the Cloud and Teleframe and stuff, So
the roster allocation.
Yeah, they're definitely not diluting what you can get on a Teams room, because as we said, let's be clear, Microsoft and everybody else.
That's
Teams
still going to be first and best. Isn't
walk
it?
up and press one button to join.
The room's ready to go.
All the hero
intelligence.
experience.
Yeah, and the room obviously continues to enhance the use of that compute. So we've looked at things like coming as facilitator running for an in-person scenario straight off the room, that kind of thing.
Multi-stream, multi-cam. There's all kinds of really cool things there. Just a better meeting stage and a big gallery and stuff. But
definitely, the last thing I want to touch on is, and we both, Randy and Chris, you both mentioned at different times, is places and room booking, because this engine that's doing the BYOD detection is the same engine that's being used for the room booking, desk booking association.
Booking. So the ability to locate peripherals in a place is not exclusive to BYOD rooms. So shared desk, hot desk, it's also being used for auto check-in, for location confirmation. So remember, in places, we have a whole video about that. In places, you have a planned work location, which is your work plan, and then there's an actual, right? And the actual is triggered at the moment via check-in in the places interface, but it also can be triggered by plugging into a desk with a known shared device on it and a known location for that desk. So all of these things are kind of in graph and are intertwined with Microsoft's ability to kind of get confident telemetry about where people are.
Yeah, it makes sense. And
it will automatically update then. So
sometimes
I know that Randy's in the office.
You see talk about features in like desk desk booking or reservation where you walk up and plug in the desk and it knows your location in Teams, that kind of thing. It's the same engine in two different scenarios. One's being leveraged towards a BYOD room type scenario, and the other one is more like I have a dock or a USB-C monitor type scenario, and that helps place me in a desk or an open plan area.
Yeah, and actually I was just asking a question that I've now found the answer to. So using a BYOD room will also be a location update trigger. That's a roadmap item. That was in Message Center 921116, and that basically will add using a BYD room to the list of other things that currently trigger your where are you, essentially.
Yeah.
And it will also, if you set the setting in Teams to allow that to happen, it will automatically update your location. And by that is a user opt-in feature along with all of the other sort of location
I love
features.
that feature. I'm kind of sad it's user opt-in because I feel like 50% of users will say no and we kind of lose some of the value. But 2025 and privacy, you have to push it. Tenant admins can't override it. It goes down to the user choice.
Yeah, and then springboarding off of that is the actual auto suggest a workspace or a room depending on your location. So if you put location information services, I'll call it that for ease because obviously that's an old Lincoln, probably OCS feature that kind of came forward to Teams eventually. As long as you got all your switches and your Wi-Fi kind of hotspots and all that kind of thing mapped, it'll know where your location is. It says you've got a meeting in your diary. It says there's 5 people that are also broadcasting the location that happen to be in the same place. Let's automatically suggest and actually book a room based on, the location proximity of all these people. It could be a Teams room, but it could also equally be a BYOD room.
Yeah, so this is more value you're getting by investing that time in doing the association, getting the reporting, getting the analytics, is making the places and the booking experience superior as well. And I love that ad hoc point. That's a really good one, Randy.
Yeah.
I think it's probably worth closing the loop on the licensing stack as well. So if you have an M365
you're going on the record with licensing, Chris. You're brave.
No, it's fine. I'm going on the record with current state of licensing, which was valid for the next 45 seconds. If you have a Teams General E3, E5, you can have an improved user experience from a BYOD room as long as that room has been associated to a resource account. If your administrator would like to get metrics about the usage of that BYOD room, they need to give that resource account a shared device license. If you, as a user, would like to benefit from intelligent recap, speaker attribution, all that good stuff, you need either a Teams Premium license or a Copilot license. Either of those 2 licenses will give you the same experience, which is correctly attributed speaker recognition from anyone in the room with an enrolled voice. So it's the host of the meeting that needs that. Are you reading that
as I don't need the shared device, and that's not the device license in that attribution
Correct.
scenario? So actually you get a ton of value here potentially for just doing the room association and having Premium or Copilot. But if your admin wants the benefits, that's where the shared device, I guess, and booking, no, because you can resource account book without the shared device.
No, the shared device just gets you what they're calling
it
in additional analytics or whatever.
And I think there's anticipation, isn't there, that more will come to that BYOD reporting analytics. We've talked about there's the idea of usage analytics, and on the roadmap there's the idea of call quality analytics coming.
Call qualities are forthcoming versus just usage. And I think what we'll also see is things like places dipping into that well. My understanding of how it works today is that both Places and ProPortal dip into the same bucket. It's not being passed from ProPortal to Places, so they both get to choose how they reference and display that information. So the more detail, the better from Places Analytics and from an admin side on ProPortal.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that's been useful for everybody, and that's like kind of current state of BYOD. If you do have any questions, comments, or feedback, let us know. Chris, thanks for getting in the licensing at the end there, because that was that's probably the key thing.
Super brave, yeah.
Hate mail to Tom. It's his event.
All questions to Chris and Randy. Randy, thanks for jumping on as well. Really appreciate the insights.
Great to be here.
Yeah, for everybody else listening, thanks for the time. And if you've got any ideas for topics or questions or areas you want to cover around Teams and Microsoft 365, do let us know. Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers, everyone.